million are books. And we have another 127 million items in our special collections. And when I say special collections, what exactly do I mean? We have manuscripts. Sarah mentioned I used to work in the manuscript reading room. In the manuscript reading room, we have the papers of noteworthy people, presidents, every president from George Washington up into Calvin Coolidge, Supreme Court justices, their personal papers, and so forth. We also have over 17 million microforms, 14 million photographs, over 6 million pieces of sheet music, over 5 million maps, and over 3 million audio materials. We also have one of the most comprehensive collections of newspapers for the entire country. Everybody know who this guy is? This is Thomas Jefferson. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the origin and background of the Library of Congress. I like to do this because when you're doing genealogical research, I always recommend that you find out as much as you can about where your ancestors lived, reading the history and so forth. So I always like to give a little bit of background for the Library of Congress. Of course, the Library of Congress was established as a legislative library in 1800. Then what happened? The British came and they burned down the Capitol in 1814. So what did we do? We purchased Thomas Jefferson's personal library in 1815. And he had over 6,000 volumes in his collection. Every time I read that number, I'm impressed. Now, I know it was a different time. No telephone, no email, no television and so forth. But to have over 6,000 volumes in your personal collection on any and every subject that you can imagine shows that he was a true Renaissance man. And that's what started this great library. Now, at the Library of Congress, we have 3 buildings. The oldest building is the Jefferson Building, then the Adams, and later came the Madison. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have about 167 million items. Now, these stats are based on 2019, but we add about 10,000 items to our collections every day. So you do the math. The number is much higher now. And also, supposedly, if you lined all of our collections up side by side, you can go over 800 miles. That's approximately the distance from Washington, D.C. to Alabama. We also have 21 reading rooms, and we have 7 overseas offices. Primarily, these offices are for acquisitions. This is where we collect materials from foreign places around the world. Okay, so we're here today to talk about genealogy. And I always suggest that you begin with yourself and work backwards. Don't start with great grandma or great grandpa. Start with you and work backwards and document everything with vital records. What are vital records? Vital records are birth, death, marriage, and even divorce records. You also want to look at census records. The latest census record available right now is the 1940. The 1950 will be available next year. Census records come out 72 years after the event. And with census records, you can go as far back as 1790. I also suggest that you interview your oldest living relative. I'm pretty lucky. I have a grandmother who's 101 years old. I believe she's the reason I got involved in doing genealogy. I would always ask her questions about her life growing up. And I noticed the differences between how she lived and how I lived. And I was always interested. I put me a picture. And I also recommend you look in the house, look in the attic, look in the basement, look in the old trunk. You may find a picture like I saw, a picture of my grandmother at 2 years old in 1922 in rural Mississippi. Now, of course, after you investigate everything around the house, you want to get out and look at the community where your ancestors lived. Maybe the county courthouse will have records. You want to see if there's a local historical society, maybe a library like the Plainfield Library, a library that has genealogical resources for your particular area of interest. Okay, so of course, not where you live now, but where your ancestors lived. Maybe a genealogical society. And as I mentioned earlier, a local historical society. So at the Library of Congress, what do we have that can help you in your genealogical journey? We have over 60,000 family histories from around the world. And we also have over 100,000 local histories. So oftentimes people come to the Library of Congress and search our catalog where they can find published family histories or local histories. Also at the Library of Congress, we have subscription databases. These are databases that we pay for so you can use them for free. One caveat, you have to be at the Library of Congress to use these subscription databases. And I'll talk more about that later. Another thing I want to mention is our genealogy collections are largely built by people just like you, people who have an interest in pursuing their family history. They self-publish their book and send it to the Library of Congress. And what better place to have your family history than the world's largest library for safekeeping? So I encourage you, when you're finished compiling your family history, to simply send it to the Library of Congress. And I'll talk more about that later. Another thing I always like to mention is the difference between the Library of Congress and the National Archives. Oftentimes people confuse the two. When you think of the Library of Congress, especially for genealogy, primarily you want to think published materials. Now, there are always exceptions. As I mentioned earlier, we have a manuscript reading room, we have a newspaper reading room, and so forth. But primarily for genealogy, we are not an archive of unpublished or primary sources, such as county, state, or church records. We may have books that contain this information, but they are not primary sources. And of course, the National Archives has federal records. Now, the Library of Congress has federal records, but they're contained in our subscription databases. So they are not the originals. Just another thing I want to point out. And as I mentioned earlier, primarily we get most of our genealogies as gifts from people just like you, but we also get some via copyright. And believe it or not, we even purchase some. Most of the purchases are from overseas, international family histories, and so forth. So the largest portion comes from people just like you. I always want to stress that because I love seeing new family histories come into the Library of Congress, especially being the African-American genealogy specialist. I love when a new book comes in and I get to look at it. So I encourage you to get it done and send it to the Library of Congress. Okay, so here's a screen capture of our website. This is the best access point for information about our services and collections. And as you can see, there's several links here. I just want to point out a few. If you look to the right, you'll see the question mark, and it says, Ask a Librarian. This is where you can submit your genealogy question, and it'll be answered by one of our reference librarians. Now, we don't do your research for you, but we will point you in the right direction. Even if the material you need is not at the Library of Congress, we'll tell you where to go. So with that being said, please do not send us a question asking for everything we have for your great-grandfather, Charles Smith. That's not what we do. What we do is, once again, we can definitely tell you where materials are located, and we'll even photocopy some things. We may scan something on your behalf, but we do not do your genealogical research for you. Now, if you look to the right, you'll see a link that says bibliographies and guides. These are guides created by reference librarians that can get you started on a particular subject or topic. And as you can see, here's a list of some of those guides. You can look at it really quickly. We have sources for research in English genealogy, Scottish genealogy, African American, and so forth. All of these guides have been digitized and they're available on our website. So make it your own, check it out. A great resource to get started in any of these particular topics or subject areas. Okay, so I mentioned we have over 38 million books and we have over 60,000 family histories. How do you find them? This is our catalog. Now, this is an online catalog. So you can search this catalog from home. And let me show you how you would search our catalog. The first thing, never use that quick search option at the top there. I always suggest that you select browse. So from there, you want to go to subjects beginning with, okay? Then you simply type in your family name. My family name is Peters. So I type in Peters, followed by the word family. Once again, browse, subjects beginning with, the name of your family, followed by the word family. And let's see what I get. Look at this. Our catalog is also a smart catalog. So it's telling me the books that we have for the Peters family, but it's also telling me I may want to look at the Petrie family and the Pierre family. They may have information related to the Peters family. Now, I can tell you, none of these books were related to my line of the Peters family. So what does that mean? I have to do the research and submit my book to the Library of Congress. I can't guarantee we're going to have anything for your particular family, but this is how you search the catalog. So as you can see, we have 36 books, which is quite a few, but how do you know if it's related to your family or not? If you click on that link, you'll get a list of the various titles. What you're looking for here, you're looking for names, dates, or locations relevant to what you already know about your family, okay? Also at the Library of Congress, we have local histories for the entire country, not just the Washington, D.C. area. So if you know what county your relatives lived in, I live in Prince George's County, which is in the state of Maryland. So I did a similar search. I went to browse, I selected subjects beginning with, and I simply typed in the name of my county, followed by the word county and the state. And let's see what I get. Look at this, all kinds of subject headings for Prince George's County. A census record for Prince George's County from 1850. This may be a good resource because people oftentimes look at the US Census records, but they don't pay attention to county census records. And we have here a published census from 1850. Now you can look at the different categories, but I highlighted genealogy for Prince George's County. And you see we have 31 books under the subject heading genealogy. Now let's take a look. This is a screen capture of some of the titles from that link. So as you can see, we have the 1828 tax list for Prince George's County. What if your relative owned property in Prince George's County in 1828? This may be a book you want to look at. There's the 1850 census again, specific to Prince George's County. Early records of a church from Prince George's County. What if your family was a member of this particular church? So you get the idea. If you're interested in any of these titles, you simply click on it. And here's an example of what it looks like once you click on a record. Now, if you're at the Library of Congress, you simply select request this item and your book is delivered to you within about an hour, okay? Also, people come to the Library of Congress to take advantage of our subscription databases. Once again, these are databases that we pay for so you can use for free. Everybody's probably familiar with Ancestry.com. We have Ancestry, the library edition, which is free at the Library of Congress. Actually, we have about 700 databases at the Library of Congress. And people who do genealogical research know that genealogy is an interdisciplinary journey. It covers all kinds of disciplines. So of these 700 databases, surely about 100 will help you with your genealogy research. And here's just a screen capture of a few. Fold 3, to name one, ProQuest historical newspapers, and you get the idea. I couldn't capture everything, but here's just a small sampling of what we have at the Library of Congress. Once again, if you go to our website, it'll tell you if it's only on site. If you look to the right, it says on site only. Some of our databases are freely accessible. So if it says freely accessible, surely you can search it from the comfort of your own home. Okay, here's Heritage Quest, which is one of our subscription databases, very similar to Ancestry. One of the major differences with this database is it has the Freedmen Bank records. And me being the African-American specialist, I can't go without highlighting the Freedmen Bank records. One of the things the Freedmen Bank records provides is one of the questions on the application for a bank account was to list your last slave owner. So if you're doing African-American genealogy, it's critical to make the connection from emancipated to enslaved. And this is a great gateway to see on an application for a bank record, the question of the last slave owner. So it's just a great way to make that connection. So I always like to highlight Heritage Quest, among other things. It has, I think, about 50,000 digitized family and local histories as well, among other things. So once again, this is a resource that's only available at the Library of Congress, but it may be available at your local library. Maybe a larger library in your community may have this same subscription database. So I welcome you to check it out and see what you can find. Here's another subscription database. This one is ProQuest Historical Newspapers. And I have a really good story about this particular database. I was working in the reading room, and we oftentimes get telephone calls, telephone reference. And a young lady called asking about her relative who died in the Chicago fire. Now, it wasn't the Great Chicago Fire, but it was another one. It was around 1870. And I simply went to ProQuest Historical Newspapers and put in Chicago Fire Bodies Recovered. And let's see what I got. Look at this. This is an article from the New York Times. Of course, this was a huge story, and it was picked up by several newspapers. And you can see there's a listing of some of the people who were recently recovered. And one of these people was her relative. And I was able to email her this article directly to her email account. And it took me about less than 5 minutes. And I'm telling you, she had to have thanked me at least 5 to 10 times. So this is just an example of how these databases can work. And you can always submit a question on Ask a Librarian if you know exactly where something may be. And we'll do the same for you. We'll simply scan it or email it straight to your email account. So just an example of how these databases can work. I understand you're in New Jersey and you may not be able to get to the Library of Congress. Well, nobody can come to the Library of Congress right now due to the current pandemic. We do offer some access to some of our subscription databases, but you have to make an appointment. And if anybody wants to know more about that, I can tell you more about that later. But oftentimes people cannot come to the Library of Congress. So I always like to highlight some of our digital collections, things you can do from home. Now, a quick caveat, it's really difficult to find these collections now on our website. So I'm going to recommend that you go to good old Google and you put in the name of this collection. It's called American Memory. And you'll see the different topics under American Memory. Select what topic you're interested in, and you'll get all kinds of resources related to that particular topic that have been digitized. And for today's lecture, I selected Immigration, American Expansion. And let's see what I get. Look at this. Under Immigration, American Expansion, we have 13 collections that are fully digitized. And you can see it's from different places around the country. So if you had a relative who lived in California, Washington, D.C., was Asian Chinese living in California, and you get the idea. Different collections are related to different areas of the country. And I selected California as I saw it. Why did I select this from 1849 to 1900? As we all know, lots of people were going to California during this time period. Why? They were looking for gold, right? People wanted to get rich. Maybe your relative went. I don't know. But this collection is fully searchable by keywords. So you can put in your relative's name. You can put in where they went in California. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you're going to find your ancestor, but you may find out something about him or her, because genealogy, I always say, is about more than just names, dates, and locations. We want to know how people lived. In genealogy, we call it putting meat on the bones. So once again, I can't guarantee you're going to find your relative, but you may find out something about their lives. During this time period, people lived more of a shared existence. Nowadays, we barely know our neighbors, but during this time period, people tended to do the same things, go to the same churches. If you notice, when you look at census records, people on the block, they all primarily had the same occupation and so forth. People attended the same church. So as an example, you can simply put in what you know and see what you get. You may find out that nugget about your relative that you had no idea of. Another example is the Capitol and the Bay. These are digital resources from Washington, D.C., the state of Maryland, and Virginia. And I go back 4 generations, D.C. So, and this collection begins in 1600 and goes all the way to 1925. Once again, you can do keyword searching, you can search the index, and you can search by title. So this is just another resource that we have at the Library of Congress that you can search from the comfort of your own home. Another example is Chronicling America. This is one of the best websites for locating digitized newspaper articles, or you can find out where a newspaper has been archived. Chronicling America is absolutely free. It's an ongoing project. Stuff is being added every day. You look to the left, you select your state, or if you're not sure, you can just put in the search box whatever you like. Once again, an ancestor's name. Put in a street name. Put in a store location. Put in a church name. Put in your pastor's name. You can put in whatever you like. And if that newspaper has been digitized, it'll show up. And another key component of this particular database is, even if your newspaper has not been digitized, you can simply search the directory and we'll tell you where that newspaper is. So for example, what if your family lived in Clark County, Mississippi, and you don't know the name of the newspapers that were in existence when your family lived there? Simply go to the directory, put in what you know, the location, the county, and the state, and we'll give you a list of newspapers that were in existence for your particular time period. And then we'll tell you where that newspaper has been archived. And it may be at the Library of Congress because we have one of the most comprehensive collections of newspapers for the entire country, okay? And I have an example of something I found using Chronicling America. Look at this. This is actually from the Washington Heral. It's dated December 10th, 1913. And as you can see, highlighted in orange there, that's my great-great-grandfather. His name was Hiram Haywood. And this was a letter to the editor. And as you can see, the first, right under the open forum, you see, remember the firemen. Now, imagine my shock. I had no idea my great-great-grandfather was a fireman, but history tells me there weren't any African-American firemen in DC in 1913. So imagine my surprise. But if you read the paragraph, you see that firemen in 1913 weren't firefighters. They were the guys that lit the gas lamps around the city. And you get an idea of how much beefsteak was. He's talking about the cost of everything going up except his paycheck. And as you can see at the bottom, he says, P.S., we want a little more pay. My kind of guy, right? I was so excited when I found this. This was definitely a aha moment. And it's just another example of what you can find using these databases. All I put in was my great-great-grandfather's name. Now, and look at the information. I found out how much beefsteak was in 1913 and even a bushel of corn. And I had no idea what my ancestor did. And now I know. Now, this was only one of several articles that I was able to find. I also found an article about when he passed away. He actually died of a stroke at the age of 50 on the job. Now, my grandfather also died of a stroke. So now I'm learning this medical history that I had no idea of. Once again, it's just an example of what you may find using these resources. You never know. I found out his occupation. I found out when he actually died. I found out how he died. And I also was able to make the connection between my grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. So you just never know. Make these things your own once again and see what you get. Also at the Library of Congress, when you're doing genealogical research, you don't want to just stay in that in the genealogy section. You want to venture out to other reading rooms because other reading rooms have things that may be significant to your research. And another thing I should mention, every reading room has the Ask a Librarian link. So if you have a question about microfilm, you can simply type in your question and you'll get a response within 5 days. And here's an example of some of the collections you may find in the Microform Reading Room, the slave narratives. These were narratives of former enslaved people where they talked about their time in slavery. We have the Barber Collection. These are vital records transcribed from pre-1850 Connecticut towns. So if you have relatives who lived in the Connecticut area, this may be a collection you want to look at. And if I had $1 for every time somebody walked into the reading room and said they were a descendant of one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence, I could retire. I would be a wealthy man. But we have the genealogy of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and they can simply go up to the Microform Reading Room and get to searching, okay? Also, in the Microform Reading Room, we have U.S. city directories, which can be quite valuable when you're doing genealogical research. The only problem with the census is it only comes out every 10 years. So a great way to kind of fill in the gaps is to use the city directories. Oftentimes, it's a way to figure out the maiden name of the spouse. It also tells you when somebody died, because the other person will be listed as a widow. So it's a way of pinpointing exactly when somebody died. So we have one of the most comprehensive collections of city directories and phone books for the entire country. Also, we have the Manuscript Reading Room. If you have an ancestor who was, prominent for any reason, you may want to visit our Manuscript Reading Room, because the Manuscript Reading Room has the papers of prominent people throughout American history. So if you have a Civil War general, a Supreme Court justice, a senator, if your relative worked for the NAACP, any number of things, I invite you to go to their website and once again, make it your own. Check it out, check out the various links and see what you can discover. Also at the Library of Congress, we have the Prints and Photographs Reading Room, where you can see if you can find pictures. Maybe you know the regiment that your ancestors served in. You may find a picture of that particular regiment from the Civil War and so on. Once again, you can just put in a search and see what you get. Now, everything has not been digitized. So once again, you can go to their reading room. You can submit a question directly to them if you have interest, and see what you get. If you notice that picture in the middle there, that's the picture of an African-American family, an African-American Civil War soldier. That's the only known picture of a Civil War soldier with his family, an African-American Civil War soldier with his family. So that's why that particular picture is highlighted. But if you look down under the collections, you can see the various collections, and you can select any of these and see what you may find. I did a search. I went under Civil War photographs and I searched for the Andersonville Prison. This was supposedly a horrific place during the Civil War. There have been movies made about this particular prison, books written, and so forth. And I just did a simple search on their catalog and I found this. This is an actual picture of the prison from 1864. And it says Andersonville Prison, which was in Georgia. The date is August 17th, 1864. Also at the Library of Congress, we have the Geography and Maps reading room. Of course, genealogists are always interested in maps. You want to pinpoint where an ancestor may have lived and so forth. Once again, this is their homepage. You can surely go here, check out the various links. And I highlighted one particular collection But if you select the different collections, you can see it's organized really well. If you're interested in railroad maps, you can select that. If you're interested in cities and towns, you may select that. Now, I'm not guaranteeing, once again, you're going to find your particular location and so forth, but once again, it's just another resource tool at your disposal. And these are all things you can do from home. And I believe I highlighted a particular, yes. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Sanborn insurance maps. These are great maps. This particular collection is available on the Geography and Maps website. These maps were created by an insurance company for liability reasons. They date back to, I believe, the 1880s. And you can simply select your particular area of interest and see if anything is available for your time period and your location. Now, they're really detailed maps. That's why people love them. They indicate where a schoolhouse may have been, a church, a store, and so forth. I didn't capture an image of an actual map, but you can surely go in and search on your own. Once again, make this your own. I can't guarantee you're going to find anything, but it's just another resource that's available to you. I believe that's my last slide. Yes. So if anybody has questions, you can ask them now. If you're feeling shy and you don't want to ask them, you can always email me. My email address is listed on the screen. It's ahjoh@loc.gov. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. It's a lot of information to try to cover in such a limited amount of time. But if you have any questions, I think Sarah is going to join back on the webinar, and I'll try to get all your questions answered. Once again, thanks for joining me.